The old Chevy pickup coughed and rattled to a stop along the dusty shoulder of a sun-scorched Nebraska road, its chipped red paint flaking like autumn leaves under the relentless August heat. Ethan Caldwell, a 35-year-old farmer with calloused hands and a heart heavy from years of struggle, stepped out, his worn boots crunching against the gravel. His flannel shirt clung to his sweat-dampened back as he squinted toward the sleek silver BMW stranded a few yards ahead, its hazard lights pulsing like a heartbeat in the fading light. A woman stood beside it, her posture poised despite the clear frustration etched into her movements as she spoke into her phone, her free hand gesturing sharply. Ethan's first instinct was to drive on his own troubles loomed large, with a failing irrigation system and bank letters piling up on his kitchen counter, but something tugged at him, a whisper of his late father's voice about doing right by others, no matter how heavy your own load. He approached, tow rope in hand, his steps deliberate but cautious. "Car trouble," he called, his voice rough from a long day in the fields. Up close, the woman was striking dark auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail, her tailored blazer and jeans hinting at a world far removed from Ethan's. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, met his, and for a moment he felt the weight of her gaze, like she was sizing up not just him but the very air he breathed. "Looks like you could use a hand," he added, offering a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. She lowered her phone, her expression softening just enough to signal relief. "I'm Lauren," she said, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "And yes, my car decided to quit on me. No warning. Nothing. Tow service says they're hours out." "Ethan," he replied, nodding toward his truck. "That's about right for Willow Creek. Not exactly a hub of activity. Mind if I take a look? I'm no mechanic, but I've kept my own gear running longer than I care to admit." His tone was matter-of-fact, but beneath it lay a flicker of curiosity. Who was this woman? Driving a car worth more than his yearly crop yield, stranded in the middle of nowhere. Lauren hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line before she nodded. "Go ahead. I'm out of options." Her voice carried a guarded edge, but her eyes followed him as he slid into the driver's seat of her BMW. The interior smelled of leather and something faintly floral, a stark contrast to the dust and oil of his own cab. He turned the key, and the weak clicking sound confirmed his suspicion. "Alternators shot," he said. "Climbing out? Not something I can fix here. You'll need a tow in a shop." Lauren sighed, her shoulders sagging as she pushed her hair back again, a gesture that betrayed her frustration. "And apparently, that's not happening tonight." Her tone was clipped, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that made Ethan pause. The sky was bruising purple, and the air was cooling fast. He couldn't leave her here. Not with night falling and the next car maybe hours away? "Where are you headed?" he asked, glancing at his watch. "I can give you a lift into town. We can call about your car from there." "Willow Creek Inn," she said, naming the only hotel in town, a modest place that catered to truckers and the occasional lost tourist. "I have a reservation." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze flicking to his truck, its faded paint, the duct-taped seat visible through the window, and then back to his face. Ethan felt a prickle of self-consciousness but held her gaze, his expression open. "That's kind of you," she said finally. "I'll grab my bag." As they climbed into his truck, her shoulder brushed his, and Ethan caught a faint whiff of her perfume, something crisp and expensive. He started the engine, the familiar rumble a comfort against the strangeness of the moment. "Sorry about the state of this thing," he said, gesturing at the cracked dashboard. "It's not much, but it gets me where I need to go." Lauren settled into the passenger seat, her fingers tracing the worn upholstery with a curiosity that surprised him. "It's got character?" she said, her lips curving into a small smile. "How long have you had it?" "Since I was a kid," Ethan said, pulling onto the road. "It was my dad's. Bought it used in '97. I was 10, thought it was the coolest thing alive. Still runs." Somehow, his voice softened at the memory, a mix of pride and grief tugging at his chest. His father had been gone 8 years, leaving him the farm, the truck, and a mountain of debt that grew heavier each season. Lauren glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "That's impressive. Not many things last that long these days." Her words were casual, but there was a weight to them, like she was testing the waters, searching for something deeper. Ethan shrugged, keeping his eyes on the road. "What brings you to Willow Creek?" "We don't get many folks in fancy cars passing through." He hesitated, then added with a half smile, "Unless you're lost." She laughed, a warm sound that filled the cab and eased the tension in his shoulders. "Not lost. I'm here for work. A research trip. Sort of. I work for an automotive company, looking at rural areas for a new project." Her answer was vague, but her eyes lit up as she spoke, and Ethan sensed a passion beneath her polished exterior. An automotive company in Willow Creek, he said, raising an eyebrow. That's a new one. What kind of project? We're exploring locations for something practical, she said, her gaze drifting to the fields rolling past. Bathed in the golden glow of sunset. This area has potential. Her voice was thoughtful, but she didn't elaborate, and Ethan didn't push. Instead, he found himself talking about the land whose farm was whose, which fields were fallow, which roads flooded in spring. Lauren listened intently, asking questions about crop rotation and water management that caught him off guard. She wasn't just making conversation, she genuinely wanted to know. As they neared town, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. There's a diner across from the inn, Ethan said, serves a mean burger till 9. Not gourmet, but it's honest food. Lauren's eyes sparkled with amusement. Are you recommending it? I am, he said, glancing at her. Best in the county. Not that there's much competition. His grin was boyish, and for the first time that day, he felt a spark of lightness. Then I'll try it, she said, her smile mirroring his. The truck hit a pothole, and Ethan winced. Sorry, roads here don't get much love. It's refreshing, Lauren said, gazing out at the sleepy town coming into view. Gas station, post office, hardware store with a sagging awning. I spend too much time in places where everything's perfect and nothing feels real. Her words hung between them, raw and unguarded, and Ethan felt a pang of recognition. He knew what it was to crave something real, something that didn't slip through your fingers like sand. At the Willow Creek Inn, Ethan pulled into the lot and cut the engine. The silence was heavy, charged with the weight of their brief connection. Thanks for the ride, Lauren said, reaching for her bag. I mean it. No trouble, Ethan said, then hesitated. I could pick you up tomorrow, help get your car sorted. I'm heading into town anyway. It wasn't entirely true his day was packed with farm chores, but the thought of seeing her again made his pulse quicken. Lauren studied him, her green eyes searching his face. If you're sure, that'd be great. Thank you, Ethan. She climbed out, and he watched her disappear into the inn, her silhouette framed by the warm glow of the lobby. Only as he drove home did he realize he hadn't asked what time to pick her up. He chuckled at himself, the sound swallowed by the quiet of his cab. That night, Ethan sat at his kitchen table, a bowl of reheated stew untouched before him. His farmhouse, a two-story relic of his great-grandfather's era, creaked around him, its peeling paint and sagging porch a mirror to his own exhaustion. The farm, 500 acres of hope and heartbreak, had been his inheritance, along with debts that seemed to grow faster than his crops. At 35, he felt older than his years, the lines around his eyes carved by worry and relentless work. 3 banks had denied his loan for a new irrigation system, and without it, another season might break him. The thought of losing the land that had been in his family for 4 generations was a weight he carried alone, a fear he couldn't voice, not even to himself. Yet, as he lay in bed, his thoughts drifted to Lauren, her expensive car, her polished demeanor, her unexpected warmth. They didn't add up. Why was she here? In a town most people passed without a second glance. And why had she looked at his truck, his life, with such curiosity, like she was seeing something she'd been searching for? He pushed the questions aside, telling himself she was just a traveler he'd helped. Tomorrow, he'd drive her to her car, and that would be the end of it, across town. Lauren sat on the edge of her bed at the Willow Creek Inn. The floral wallpaper and sturdy oak furniture, a far cry from the sleek hotels she was used to. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her voice low as she spoke to her assistant, Daniel. The car broke down, she said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Yes, I know the irony. Heiress to an auto empire, stranded by a faulty alternator. Should I send a car? Daniel asked, concern lacing his tone. I can have one there by morning. No, Lauren said, surprising herself. A local farmer gave me a ride. He's helping me tomorrow. I'll manage. She paused, picturing Ethan's weathered hands, the quiet pride in his voice when he spoke of his truck. His truck, it's a 97 Chevy, faded red, barely holding together, but he's kept it running for decades. It's remarkable. Daniel's laugh was gentle. Remarkable. That's a new one from you. Lauren's smile widened. As the granddaughter of Edward Thornton, founder of Thornton Automotive, and daughter of its current CEO, Margaret Thornton, she'd grown up surrounded by the finest vehicles money could buy. By 16, she could dissect an engine's specs with surgical precision. By 27, she'd led the design of Thornton's top-selling SUV, but somewhere along the way, cars had become cold products, sleek, disposable, built to dazzle, not endure. Ethan's truck, with its dents and patches, was a rebuke to that world, a testament to care and resilience. You're thinking about the endurance line, Daniel said, reading her silence. I am, she admitted. The board wants another luxury model. But there's a market for vehicles that last, that people can repair themselves. People like Ethan, she stood, pacing to the window, the quiet street below a stark contrast to Detroit's bustle. This trip is showing me what I've been missing. Something real. After the call, Lauren walked to the diner Ethan had recommended, ordering a burger that was, as promised, simple but delicious. The waitress, a warm woman named Betty, raised an eyebrow when Lauren mentioned Ethan. You know Ethan Caldwell? She asked, pouring coffee. Not really, Lauren said. My car broke down, and he gave me a ride. Betty nodded, her eyes kind. That's Ethan, good as they come. But he's had it rough since his dad passed. Farm struggling, like most around here. Big companies buying up land, weather turning unpredictable, equipment costs soaring. Ethan's irrigation system's on its last legs, needs a new one. But banks won't lend to small farmers. Lauren's heart sank, a mix of sympathy and curiosity stirring. That sounds tough. It is, Betty said, moving to another table. Enjoy your burger. As Lauren ate, her mind churned. Ethan's kindness, his truck's stubborn endurance, the quiet pride in his voice, they were pieces of a puzzle she hadn't expected to find in Willow Creek. By the time she returned to her room, a plan was forming, one that went beyond her research. She made a late call to Thornton's R&D team, discussing specs for engines built for longevity, her voice alive with a passion she hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Ethan pulled into the inn's lot at 8 a.m., his heart inexplicably lighter despite the day's looming chores. Lauren was waiting, her casual jeans and t-shirt a contrast to yesterday's polish, her hair loose and catching the morning sun. Right on time, she said, climbing into his truck with a smile that made his chest tighten. Slept okay? He asked, suddenly awkward as he started the engine. Surprisingly well, she said, settling in, and the burger was excellent. You've got good taste. Her teasing tone drew a grin from him, and for a moment, the weight of his worries lifted. Glad you liked it, he said. I called Jake's garage. They can tow your car, but it might take a few days for a BMW alternator, not a common part here. I figured, Lauren said, her tone thoughtful. Actually, I was wondering, I need to look at some properties for my project. Would you show me around? I'd pay for your time. Of course. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. Show you around. I could, but there's not much to see. Just fields and more fields. He hesitated, the offer tempting despite his packed schedule. No need to pay me. Call it Willow Creek hospitality. Her smile was genuine, transforming her face. Thank you. Ethan, that's kind. They drove to her stranded BMW first, where Ethan helped transfer a few items to his truck. As they waited for the tow, Lauren took a call, her voice sharp and professional, her gestures emphatic. Ethan couldn't hear her words, but the intensity in her posture made him wonder about the world she came from. When the tow truck arrived, driven by Jake, a friend from high school, Ethan ignored the curious look Jake shot him. Where to first? Ethan asked as they climbed back into his truck. Your farm, Lauren said, surprising him, if that's okay. I'd love to see it. Ethan hesitated, his farm a patchwork of old equipment and deferred repairs. Far from impressive. But her curiosity seemed sincere, and he nodded. Sure, just don't expect much. The drive to his farm was filled with easy conversation, Lauren's questions about local agriculture revealing a sharp mind. As they pulled into his driveway, the farmhouse's peeling paint and sagging porch loomed large, but Lauren's eyes were bright. It's beautiful, she said softly. It has history, 4 generations, Ethan said, a swell of pride mixing with his usual self-consciousness. My great-grandfather built it in 1920. We've added on, but the bones are the same. He showed her the barn, the silos, the cattle pasture, and the irrigation system a jury-rigged mess he spent too much time fixing. Lauren knelt beside him as he explained a leaking junction, her technical questions surprising him. You need a complete overhaul, she said. Not a question, but a statement. Yeah, he admitted, his voice tight, but that's money I don't have. She nodded, brushing dust from her jeans. And the truck, you maintain it yourself. Most of it, he said, leading her back to the house. Some things go to Jake, but I handle the basics. Inside, the farmhouse was cool and dim, its worn furniture and family photos a stark contrast to Lauren's world. Water, he offered, filling glasses from the tap. Lauren wandered to the living room, pausing at a photo of Ethan and his father beside the Chevy, both grinning. Your dad, she asked, accepting the glass. Yeah, Ethan said, a familiar ache rising. That's the day he bought the truck. I was 10. He taught me everything farming, fixing things. Said a man should know the tools he depends on. His voice caught, and he took a sip to cover it. He sounds wise, Lauren said softly. They sat on the sofa, and Ethan found himself opening up about his father's fight with cancer. The farm's struggles, the medical bills he'd paid off at the cost of the farm's future. Lauren listened, her questions gentle but piercing, drawing out stories he hadn't told in years. It was past noon when he realized how long they'd talked. I'm keeping you from your tour, he said. Apologetic. This has been illuminating, she said, her eyes warm. They spent the afternoon visiting nearby properties, Lauren taking notes and photos, her questions about soil and water access revealing a practical purpose Ethan hadn't expected. At the diner that evening, Betty's knowing look made Ethan flush, but the conversation with Lauren flowed effortlessly over burgers and pie. When he dropped her at the inn, she paused. Can we do more tomorrow? There are other properties I'd like to see. I'll be here at 8, he said. The words out before he could second-guess them, her smile lingered in his mind all the way home. The next 2 days followed the same rhythm, mornings exploring properties, afternoons talking about everything from farming to thunderstorms. Ethan shared his fears of losing the farm, his dreams of modernizing it. Lauren spoke vaguely of her work in product development, hinting at a life of travel and responsibility. On the third evening, as they ate ice cream at a roadside stand, her phone rang. She stepped away, her posture stiffening. Her voice clipped when she returned. Her face was composed, but tension lingered. Everything okay? Ethan asked. My car's fixed, she said, her voice flat, and I'm needed back at the office. I leave tomorrow. Oh, Ethan's chest tightened, disappointment sharper than he'd expected. Morning, she said, looking at her hands. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. My full name is Thornton Reeves. My grandfather founded Thornton Automotive. My mother's the CEO. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer. Ethan froze, the words sinking in. Thornton Automotive was a titan. Its luxury cars a symbol of wealth he couldn't fathom. Lauren wasn't just an employee, she was an heiress. So this wasn't about properties, he said, his voice hard. I was your research subject. No, she said, standing as he did, her eyes pleading. It started as research. Yes, but these days with you they've been more, so much more. Her voice cracked, and Ethan wanted to believe her. But the gulf between their worlds felt unbridgeable. I should get you back, he said, his tone cold. The drive was silent, the ease of their days gone. At the inn, Lauren turned to him. Please, don't let this change everything. How can it not? He said, gripping the wheel. You're Thornton Reeves. You could buy this town. You came here to study us. That's not fair, she protested. Everything else our time together was real. I haven't felt this connected in years. Her sincerity shook him, but hurt kept him rigid. I'm leaving tomorrow, she said when he didn't respond. Can we have breakfast? Saja. He nodded curtly. Said, for what it's worth, she said. Pausing at the door, your truck is the most impressive vehicle I've seen. Not for speed or looks, but for what it represents: durability, loyalty. Something real. That's what I want to bring to Thornton. She was gone before he could reply. Ethan drove home in a daze, her words echoing. Was she genuine? Could someone like her truly see value in his world? By morning, he decided to hear her out. At the diner, Lauren was waiting, her casual sweater and jeans making her seem more like the woman he'd come to know. You came, she said, relief flooding her face. Said I would, he said, sliding into the booth. When's your flight? None, she said, watching him over her coffee. Ethan, I have a proposal. A partnership between Thornton and your farm. My farm, he repeated, stunned, not the farm itself. She clarified. Your expertise. I want to build a testing facility for our new endurance line practical vehicles for rural life. You'd consult, test prototypes, give feedback. We'd pay you significantly. She named a figure that made Ethan's breath catch. Enough to fix his irrigation system and more. That's substantial. He managed. It's fair, she said. And there's more. I'd like to come back regularly to oversee the project. Personally, her eyes held his. The implication clear. Why me? He asked. There are thousands of farmers. Because you see vehicles as tools. Companions, she said. That truck is your history. Your father's legacy. You'd tell us when we're designing for show, not function. And because I trust you, her voice softened. I'd need to think about it, he said, overwhelmed. Take your time, she said, sliding a business card across the table. My direct number. Call me. Breakfast passed too quickly, and soon Ethan was driving her to Jake's garage. Outside, beside her gleaming BMW, they stood awkwardly. Thank you, she said, for everything. I'm glad I stopped, he said, meaning it. As she drove away, waving, Ethan felt the weight of her absence. Like the town had lost its pulse. 3 days later, his truck broke down, a hose finally giving out. As he fixed it under the fading light, grease on his hands, he thought of Lauren's words about his truck's reality. He made his decision. The next morning, he called her Noah. Her voice warmed, hope evident. I'm interested, he said, but I have conditions. I want input on design, not just testing. I stay on my farm, traveling only when needed, and I need to know if this is just business or something more. Her pause was long, and Ethan's heart pounded. It started as business, she said softly, but those days with you were the realest I've had in years. Yes, there's more. I hope there can be. Relief flooded him. Good, because I feel the same. I'm coming back next week, she said, smiling through the phone, to look at a property for the facility. They talked for an hour, planning her visit. When Lauren arrived, she brought concept designs for the endurance line, and they pored over them at Ethan's kitchen table, their ideas meshing seamlessly. That afternoon, a storm rolled in, and they dashed to the porch, laughing and soaked. Inside, as thunder rumbled, Lauren admitted she loved storms for their raw power. Over hot chocolate, their conversation deepened, the air charged with unspoken feelings. I want you to know, she said, her voice husky, this partnership matters professionally. But what's between us, it's more. I don't want one to complicate the other. We'll figure it out, Ethan said, taking her hand. One day at a time. Their first kiss was tentative, then sure, a promise sealed in the storm's glow. Over the next 6 months, their partnership flourished. Thornton signed contracts for a testing facility, and Ethan balanced farming with consulting, his input shaping the endurance line. Lauren visited often, eventually staying at the farmhouse, their evenings filled with laughter and quiet moments. In October, the first prototype arrived, a sturdy pickup Ethan nicknamed Grit. He tested it rigorously, his feedback refining its design. On a crisp Christmas Eve, they returned to the farm, the snow-covered fields a holiday postcard. Lauren's gift, a fully funded irrigation system, left Ethan speechless, a gesture that could save his farm. It's a business investment, she teased, but her eyes said more. Christmas morning, on a snowy hill overlooking the farm, Lauren proposed a new future. I want to make this our home, she said. Not all the time, but primarily, I've been happier here with you than anywhere else. Ethan's heart swelled. Pulling his grandmother's ring from his pocket, he knelt. If you're ready for this leap, so am I. Lauren Thornton Reeves. Will you marry me? Yes, she whispered, tears sparkling. Yes, Ethan Caldwell. As they walked back, snow falling, Ethan knew this was their beginning, a legacy of love, durability, and something real, built to last a lifetime. Hey, if you loved this story of chance encounters and lasting love, hit that subscribe button for one kind moment. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and stay tuned for more stories that warm the heart.